All right, ladies and gentlemen, we welcome you to the Southern Nevada Regional Housing Authority this afternoon. Thank you so much for being here. In our audience, we have many of our commissioners tuning in by the power of technology. And I just want to say thank you really quick to Tommy and Dominique and Fernando for getting us set up with this excellent system so we can facilitate this meeting to the best of our ability. We have 4 meetings today, but don't be alarmed because they're all relatively straightforward. We're going to go ahead and start out with the first meeting for Wardell Street Townhomes. I'll turn that over to Mr. Williams.
Thank you. I'd like to call to order the agenda for the Wardell Street Townhomes LLC to be held today, Thursday, June 18th at 12 noon. All items on the agenda are for possible action unless otherwise noted. Ms. Robinson, will you call the roll?
Director Chad Williams.
Present.
Director Scott Black. Here. Director Cheryl Davis. Director Sharon Davis.
Here.
Director Olivia Diaz.
Present.
Director Fred Herron. Director Misha Hooks. Director Tick Sagerbloom.
Here.
Director Dan Shaw.
Here.
Director Lawrence Weekly. A quorum is present, and we are in compliance with the Nevada open meeting law.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. Public comment. Public comment during this portion of the agenda must be limited to matters on the agenda for action. If you wish to be heard, come to the podium and give your name for the record. The amount of discussion, as well as the amount of time any single speaker is allowed, may be limited. Public comment that is repetitious, slanderous, offensive, and inflammatory, amounts to personal attacks, or interferes with the rights of other speakers is not allowed. Any person who acts in violation of these rules will be excused for the remainder of the meeting. Public hearings may be declared open by the chairperson as required for any of the items on this agenda designated for discussion and possible action. Public comment that is repetitious, slanderous, offensive, and inflammatory, amounts to personal attacks, or interferes with the rights of other speakers is not allowed. Any person who acts in violation of these rules will be excused for the remainder of the meeting. Actually, I need to go back. Is there anyone in the public that has a public comment on this agenda item dealing with approval to amend Resolution WST 5 for the Wardell Street Townhomes? Seeing none, I close public comment and move resolution to approve the amendment of Resolution WST 5 Wardell Street Townhomes. As provided in the debrief, this is an update to our resolution in partnership with the city to provide for 6 additional parking spaces at our Wardell Street Townhomes development, which is at the corner of Bonanza and Wardell, so the city can properly apply for new market tax credits. I'll move the item for discussion to the board.
There's no discussion. I'll move for approval.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion moves forward. Citizen participation. Items raised under this portion of the agenda cannot be deliberated or acted upon by the Board of Directors of the Wardell Street Townhomes LLC until the notice provisions of the open meeting law have complied with. If you wish to speak on matters on or off the agenda, please step up to the podium, clearly state your name and address. In consideration of others and avoid repetition, and limit your comments to no more than 3 minutes. To ensure all persons equal opportunity to speak, each subject matter will be limited to 12 minutes. As a courtesy, we will ask those not speaking to be seated and not interrupt speakers or directors. Anyone wishing to provide citizen participation in regards to Wardell Street Townhouses, LLC? Seeing none, I'll adjourn the meeting. I now call to order the Wardell Street Townhouses Manager LLC meeting. All items on this agenda are for possible action unless otherwise noted. Ms. Robinson, will you read the roll?
Director Chad Williams.
Present.
Director Scott Black.
Here.
Director Cheryl Davis. Director Sharon Davis.
Here.
Director Olivia Diaz.
Present.
Director Fred Herron. Director Misha Hooks. Director Tick Sagerbloom.
Here.
Director Dan Shaw.
Here.
Director Lawrence Weekly.
Here.
A quorum is present, and we are in compliance with the Nevada open meeting law.
Thank you. Public comment during this portion of the agenda must be limited to matters on the agenda for action. If you wish to be heard, come to the podium and give your name for the record. The amount of discussion as well as the amount of time any single speaker is allowed may be limited. Public comment that is repetitious, slanderous, offensive, and inflammatory, amounts to personal attacks, or interferes with the rights of other speakers is not allowed. Any person who acts in violation of these rules will be excused for the remainder of the meeting. Is there anyone in the public wishing to provide comment in regards to the agenda items as posted for the Wardell Street Townhouses Manager LLC? Seeing none, I'll close public comment. For discussion and possible action, public hearings may be declared open by the chairperson as required for any of the items on this agenda designated for discussion and possible action. Public comment that is repetitious, slanderous, offensive, and inflammatory, amounts to personal attacks, or interferes with the rights of other speakers is not allowed. Any person who acts in violation of these rules will be excused for the remainder of the meeting. I move forward the approval to amend Resolution WSTM 5 Wardell Street Townhouses Manager LLC to the board.
I'll move for approval to amend the resolution.
I'll second.
We have a
Second.
motion by Director Scott, seconded by Director Shaw. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion approved. Citizen participation. Items raised under this portion of the agenda cannot be deliberated or acted upon by the Board of Directors of Wardell Street Townhouses Manager LLC until the notice provisions of the open meeting law have been complied with. If you wish to speak on matters on or off the agenda, please step up to the podium, clearly state your name and address. In consideration of others, avoid repetition and limit your comments to no more than 3 minutes. To ensure all persons equal opportunity to speak, each subject matter will be limited to 12 minutes. As a courtesy, we will also ask those not speaking to be seated and not interrupt the speaker or directors. Is there anyone wishing to provide citizen participation for the Wardell Street Townhomes Manager LLC meeting? Seeing none, I adjourn the meeting. I now call to order the meeting of the Affordable Housing Programs, Inc., an affiliate subsidiary of the Southern Nevada Regional Housing Authority. All items on this agenda are for possible action unless otherwise noted. Ms. Robinson, will you read the roll?
Director Chad Williams,
Present.
Director Scott Black,
Here.
Director Cheryl Davis, Director Sharon Davis,
Here.
Director Olivia Diaz,
Here.
Director Fred Herron, Director Misha Hooks, Director Chick Sagerblum,
Here.
Director Dan Shaw,
Here.
Director Lawrence Weekly.
Here.
A quorum is present and we are in compliance with the Nevada Open Meeting Law.
Thank you. Public comment during this portion of the agenda must be limited to matters on the agenda for action. If you wish to be heard, come to the podium and give your name for the record. The amount of discussion as well as the amount of time any single speaker is allowed may be limited. Public comment that is repetitious, slanderous, offensive, and inflammatory, amounts to personal attacks, or interferes with the rights of other speakers is not allowed. Any person who acts in violation of these rules will be excused for the remainder of the meeting. Is there anyone wishing to provide public comment in regards to the posted agenda items for Affordable Housing Program, Inc.? Seeing none, I close public comment. For discussion and possible action, public hearings may be declared open by the chairperson as required for any of the items on this agenda designated for discussion and possible action. Public comment that is repetitious, slanderous, offensive, and inflammatory, amounts to personal attacks, or interferes with the rights of other speakers is not allowed. Any person who acts in violation of these rules will be excused for the remainder of the meeting. I now bring forward request to approve resolution number AHP 28. Staff is requesting board approval for AHP resolution 28, authorizing AHP officers to execute any and all documents necessary to prepare and submit amendment to the Section 8 disposition application for the Wardell Street Townhouses project to enter into a ground lease agreement between the Southern Nevada Regional Housing Authority and the City of Las Vegas. The action that is being requested is to approve AHP resolution number AHP 28 and authorize the president and/or vice president to execute any and all documents necessary to amend the Section 18 disposition application of the Wardell Street Townhouses. I now move the agenda item for discussion and approval for the board.
Second.
We have a motion from Ms. Director Herron and seconded by Director Shaw. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Agenda item passes. Citizen participations. Items raised under this portion of the agenda cannot be deliberated or acted upon by the Board of Directors of AHP Inc. until the notice provisions of the open meeting law have been complied with. If you wish to speak on matters on or off the agenda, please step up to the podium, clearly state your name and address. In consideration of others, avoid repetition and limit your comments to no more than 3 minutes. To ensure all persons equal opportunity to speak, each subject matter will be limited to 12 minutes. As a courtesy, we will also ask those not speaking to be seated and not interrupt the speaker or the directors. Is there anyone present that would like to provide citizen participation for the Affordable Housing Program, Inc.? Seeing none, I adjourn the meeting. Mr. Chairperson.
Aye, Misha.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Is that you, Commissioner Hooks, that joined the meeting?
Yes, me.
Okay, thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, at this time, I'll call to order the regular board meeting of the Board of Commissioners for the Southern Nevada Regional Housing Authority here at noon on the 18th of June. We welcome you all here, and at this time, I'd like to ask Ms. Robinson if she'll help us with the roll call.
Chairperson Scott Black,
Here.
Vice Chairperson Olivia Diaz,
Here.
Commissioner Cheryl Davis, Commissioner Sharon Davis,
Here.
Commissioner Misha Hooks,
Here.
Commissioner Tick Segerbloom,
Here.
Commissioner Dan Shaw,
Here.
Commissioner Lawrence Weekly.
Here.
A quorum is present. We are in compliance with the Nevada open meeting law.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. This time, we will go to item number 2 on the agenda, public comment. Public comment during this portion of the agenda must be limited to matters on the agenda for possible action. If you wish to be heard, come to the speaker's podium, clearly state your name and address, and please spell your last name for the record. The amount of time any single speaker is allowed will be limited to 3 minutes. If any member of the board wishes to extend the length of any presentation, this will be done by the chair or board by majority vote. Are there any here that would like to come and speak on posted agenda items on our agenda today? Seeing none, we'll close the public comment and go to item number 3, approval of minutes of the regular meeting of the May 21st, 2020. I'll entertain a motion for approval of the minutes.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Second. I'll second.
We have a motion by Councilwoman Diaz and a second by Commissioner Segerbloom. I saw his lips move. Was that right? I read your lips and you said second.
You read my lips.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Please state your name if there is any opposing votes today, especially for those that are tuning in on the video. That motion passes. Item number 4, approval of the agenda with inclusion of any emergency items and deletions of any items for possible action. I'll turn this over to the board for a motion and approval of the agenda.
I'll move for approval of the agenda.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilman Shaw and a second by Councilwoman Diaz. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That passes. Thank you very much. Now we'll move to section 2 of our agenda, the consent agenda, which consists of item number 5, approval of SNRHA resolution number SNRHA 110 to amend section 18 disposition application of the Wardell Street townhomes. That was the action that was took place in the previous 3 meetings that we had. Is there any question from the board regarding the item on the consent agenda?
I'll move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilman Shaw and a second by Councilwoman Diaz. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you. Moving to section 3, commissioners and executive directors recognitions. Turn that over to Mr. Williams.
I have no recognitions at this time.
Okay, thank you. Section, is that including individuals that have passed recognition and of those that have departed? Same?
No, that's number 6.
6, okay. We'll go to item number 6, Mr. Williams.
Unless the commissioners have anything they like.
Okay, yes, absolutely. Anything that the commissioners would like to state in terms of recognition? Hearing none, we'll go to item number 6, Mr. Williams.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Unfortunately, today we want to acknowledge a significant number of folks who've passed over the past couple of months. And I'll read their names into the record and the properties where they lived. At Archie Grant, we lost Joseph Johnson, Eldorado Regis. At Robert Gordon Plaza, we lost Anthony Starkley, Thomas Kinney, Brenda Williams, Anthony Slavo, Robert Macarilo, Blauzar Apartments, Rochelle Hardiman, and Ving King Ning, Jones Gardens, Felicia Walker, Ernie Cragen, Esther Garcia, Harry Levy, Alfonso Rivera. At Jamestown Towers, we lost Rudy Garano, Ezra Zali, Arnella Hairston, Pauline Dunn Taplin, and Benny Jones Jr. At Arthur Sartini Plaza, we lost Nancy Myers, Pedro Vera, Beverly Berg, Felipe Gerber, and Patricia Brown. In our Arthur Sartini Plaza Annex, we lost Jesse Selman. Mr. Chairperson.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. At this time, ladies and gentlemen, and those that are on the computer, if you'll join me in a moment of silence on behalf of these 22 individuals that have passed. Thank you very much. And our condolences to their loved ones for their loss. At this time, we'll move to,
Sagerblum,
yes, sir.
just inquire, and I don't know if it's public record, but were some of these related to the virus?
We wouldn't know. In fact, we would only receive that information from the Southern Nevada Health District, and then those family members would have to agree to release information in regards to HIPAA.
Mr. Williams, what was the duration of time in which these individuals passed away over? Because I don't think we had a report last month. So this was for a span of several months?
Actually, 3 months.
3 months, okay,
Yeah.
okay. All right, thank you for that question, Mr. Segerblum. We'll go to section number 4, for discussion and possible action. Item number 7, approve to retitle the Risk Management Coordinator to Compliance Officer and reclassify this newly created position from Range 124 to Range 127. Mr. Williams.
Yes. So, Commissioners, I've just put up on the screen for everyone's, let me see if I can zoom in a little bit more here. Go out. Let's see here. So this was actually requested from Commissioner Lawrence Weekly before we moved forward any other changes in the organizational structure of the agency for the board. And so I put together a flow chart here, and I'll go through all of the 20 pages of our organizational chart to give the board a perspective and highlight the actual 2 changes that we're bringing forward and the 2 changes that we made at the previous month's board meeting. So obviously at the top we have the Board of Commissioners in that turquoise kind of color there at the top. The purple is Executive Director. And as in our contract with Parker and Nelson, we have the General Counsel reporting both to the Board of Commissioners in that green to the right, and also the Executive Director. To the far left, we have the green. That's where we have our new created Chief Administrative Officer position. And those 3 positions under there are the Finance Manager that is currently vacant that we'll be recruiting for this fall, and our IT Manager and our Procurement Manager. This is what we would consider sometimes, as you've heard us call the COCC, Central Office Cost Center, which is the administrative support arm for the agency for the programmatic departments. Here we have our Chief Operating Officer in this green box here, and under that we have the Eligibility Manager, Director of Operations, Director of Development and Modernization, that deals with our real estate development arm, Director of Affordable Housing, Supportive Services Manager, and Director of our HCV department. As you can see there are 6 departments that fall under there. Directly reporting to the Executive Director, we have the Human Resource Manager. Currently, we have a vacant position, which we call the Organizational Development Analysis. That's the one of the positions that we're bringing forward to the board. We currently have a HR Specialist, and we have a vacant HR Assistant position. In addition to the HR Manager directly reporting to the Executive Director, we have the Hearing Officer that deals with hearing requests from individuals in our public housing and Section 8 programs that may feel that They have been terminated out of the program, and they can go through a hearing process. They meet with that hearing officer, and then if they disagree with the hearing officer, they can escalate that and appeal directly to the executive director. Then we made this change last year where the fraud investigator primarily was housed in the Section 8 department, Housing Programs Department. We pulled the fraud investigator out on several recommendations from the HUD OIG and HUD to actually directly report to the executive director. And the fraud investigator, although primarily focuses on HCV fraud activities in relation to participants but also employees, I've also given that individual the ability to investigate other matters that there may be conceived fraud across the agency. And then at the far right, we have a position that we would like to reclassify. Right now, this is the risk management compliance risk management specialist, and it actually deals with our insurance, workers' compensation. One of the things we talked, and the chairperson has been part of those discussions, and also I've spoken with Mr. Weekly about this, is that we actually needed our own compliance unit for the agency. And so under there, we're actually pulling one of the positions that used to be in IT as a management quality control analyst position. Then we have a compliance specialist position that particularly deals with our CMAP scoring, Section 8 management assessment program, which we get annually evaluated with every year. And then we will be looking to expand that also for a dual position on our public housing, dealing with our FAST score and how we report that. So that is the top level for the agency dealing with the organization. Here, we have the finance department. We have the vacant finance manager position, and we have two management level positions. Our accountants, Isabel Lopez, who's actually in the audience, and then Rodney Mitten, and this is our finance department. Next, we have our IT department. In our IT department, we have an IT programmer. We have Tommy here in the front here as our IT specialist. We have a data analyst, and then we have 3 call center specialists to take our calls, incoming calls. Next, we have the procurement department. In the procurement department, we have 2 contract administrators, and then we have 2 procurement technicians to actually deal with our micro purchases, and then we have a procurement person that deals with our fleet management and inventory across the agency. In our admissions and eligibility department, we have an eligibility manager who's supported by a client services specialist, and then we have 3 senior eligibility specialists, and under those 3 senior eligibility specialists serving as leads, we have 3 to 4 eligibility specialists that receive individuals who make sure that they meet the criteria to be in our HCV and public housing programs. Next, we have one of our largest departments. This is our public housing operations department, where we have a director at the top. The green box below that is the deputy director. The maintenance superintendent for the agency reports to this director, and that director has an admin support and executive secretary. In our public housing operations, we have 6 asset managers. These are 3 currently being shown, and then we have 6 maintenance supervisors, and those 3 are currently shown below the asset manager. But on the next page, should come up, you'll see the other 3 asset managers and the other 3 maintenance supervisors. A little slow up there on the screen. And then I just broke down here what we have is our groups of teams of those maintenance supervisors that you've seen. Here we have 1 maintenance supervisor that supervises 3, another here that supervises 4. Here is 2, and we break this down based on the asset properties unit numbers to determine the number of maintenance personnel that should be assigned to an AMP that we call it. Here we got our Director in Development, Development and Modernization Department. Our Director in Development Modernization supervises currently 4 FTE staff members. We have a project manager, and that project manager supervises 3 individuals in that department. Next, we have our Affordable Housing Department that deals with our non-federal subsidized properties. Here we have our Director of Affordable Housing. Then we have our vacant Deputy Director of Affordable Housing position that the board approved some months ago, and we're still in a recruitment process for that. That was the position I believe I communicated an email to where we're trying to target diversity in that recruitment to Commissioner Diaz and Commissioner Sigerbroom. We have, I believe, 6. We have 4 property managers on this screen, and then the other purple highlights the additional 4 property managers on the next screen and their maintenance supervisors. Yeah, it's a delay between my computer. And then next, we have our reconstituted supportive services team. And our supportive services team is basically that team that goes out and outreaches into the community, provides supportive services to transition folks out of our subsidized programs. To the far left, we have a resident program coordinator, Martha Floyd, and she supervises 9 individuals who provide services through our Family Self-Sufficiency Program. That's the program that transitions individuals out of public housing and out of our HCV program to home ownership or self-sufficiency. Under there, we have our program service coordinator, Laura Morgan. She helps with home ownership and other special supportive services activities. Marion Byrne, who actually deals exclusively with our resident councils. Ms. Byrne has actually announced her retirement. Her retirement will be effective at the end of this month, so we'll be recruiting for that position. We'll look for someone who wants to, be hands-on, obviously, with our resident councils and bring that up, as there's been several discussions here at this board about that. Then we have our senior services coordinators. As you can see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 senior services coordinators. Those are assigned to our elderly designated properties, providing supportive services to our residents. And then at the far right, you see our 2 resident drivers. They bring residents to the board meetings. They shuttle residents to various appointments and engagement activities once we eventually go back to phase 3. Next, we have our largest department, which is our Section 8 department. Here we have our new director, Denise Watson, as the director. Then we have a deputy director, and this deputy director supervises 3 HCV supervisors and 1 HQS supervisor. These top 3 purple are the HCV supervisors and then the HQS supervisors. And then that individual also supervises 5 office assistants. So the office assistants are the first individuals that people greet when they come to the HCV department, sometimes when they have calls. They're also the individuals that pull files for our occupancy specialists. And we break down the teams of those under the supervision of the HCV supervisors. You can see that's pretty significant. The next group of occupancy specialists, HQS inspector, and then also we have our special program supervisor that deals with our VASH, mainstream, RAD, and project-based vouchers. And that's the organizational chart of the agency. So let me go back to where these positions actually lie, because they're actually just on the first page. Under the human resource manager, still going, hold on. Oh, it's there, okay. So under the human resource manager is requesting an organizational development analyst. I'll let her come up and speak on that request after I read it into the record. And then at the far right, a different kind of shaded blue, is this compliance officer position that will eventually supervise 3 individuals to provide compliance oversight of our Section 8, public housing, and then also our reporting to HUD. So with that, I'd like to read into the record approval. Staff is requesting approval to retitle the risk management coordinator to the compliance officer and reclassify this newly created position from range 124 to range 127. SNRHA is creating this position to ensure compliance with HUD directives, performing analysis to improve CMAP, FAST, and REACT indicators. The proposed salary range for this classification is range 127. Action requested is the review and approval of the compliance officer position. Mr. Chairperson.
Thank you for that thorough explanation of our organizational chart, Mr. Williams, and the item before us, the reclassification of this newly formed position. Are there any questions from the board for Ms. Fleming or Mr. Williams regarding this newly created position, its functions, anything related to it?
I just want to know, how do we get a hard copy of the chart since I can't see it on the computer?
Can you email the org chart to the
Yes.
board? Okay.
Yes. What I'll do is actually email the org chart and in PDF. I'll send you the Visio file. I'm sure your staff, particularly at the government agencies, have Visio, and I will send an Excel spreadsheet that actually details the subordinate documentation for the organizational chart to the board after our meeting.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Ms. Fleming or Mr. Williams regarding this agenda
Mr.
item?
Chair, I have a question. This is Lawrence.
Yes, sir, Mr. Weekly.
Thank you. So, Mr. Williams, not so much about the position, Mr. Chairman. I think as they're being reclassified to be in compliance with the federal guidelines, that makes a lot of sense. But I guess one of the questions that I would have as I look at a number of the positions that are unfilled, Mr. Williams, as different agencies, governmental agencies, are facing a number of budgetary crises. That's one of the things I've not seen yet as far as where are we budgetary wise. I know that a number of boards that I've sat on have already had budget hearings. I know that from North Las Vegas, Mr. Chairman and Madam Vice Chair, you all have gone through your budget hearings as well as we have, because we have a certain deadline that we have to meet. The question that I would have, Mr. Williams, is that with many of us that are facing, whether it be layoffs, furloughs, or even retirements, and then the fiscal impacts due to COVID-19, what does this do for us as it relates to filling a number of these positions? I'm really excited to hear people like IT specialists, Mr. Tommy, who I think has been doing a fantastic job, Ms. Denise Watson, who's been with the agency for a number of years, have definitely displayed her talent, and I'm so glad it's being recognized. Mr. Stafford, who has just, it's a number of employees that you have on your team, Mr. Williams, that have done a fantastic job, and it's about time that they're being recognized for that. But I guess I'm concerned budgetary-wise of not seeing anything as it relates to the budget, and how is it that the Housing Authority is addressing what the impacts that everyone else is experiencing, because I'm sure if each municipality that's represented on this board, and even Councilman Shaw from Henderson, as we all deal with our budgetary issues, I've not heard any of that from the Housing Authority as it relates to looking at this org chart, which it's great. And thank you for producing it, Mr. Williams, but I'd like to hear more about that. And maybe, Mr. Chair, today is not the day for that. I think that's an important discussion that needs to be had. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Weekly. I think definitely moving forward, if we would see basically what you're saying is we want to see what's coming around the corner for us from a finance and budgeting standpoint with the Housing Authority. Would you like to speak to that, Mr. Williams?
Yeah, it's a very short answer. I can give a long one if needed. The fortunate thing is that uniquely the Housing Authority is directly funded from the federal government. And so we haven't received any indications from HUD or the federal government that the proration funding that we will be receiving next fiscal year will be reduced. In fact, all we're hearing is that it will be at the same level. Our Housing Authority fortunately is not impacted by many of the jurisdictions that rely on sales taxes or property taxes. We're basically 190% funded directly from the federal government, and then our revenue streams on our non-federal side from the Affordable Housing Department